And we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another fantastic episode of Mind, Money and Marketing. And today I have a super special guest. I'm really excited to speak to this guy this morning, actually, because it's actually the first time that we have spoken face-to-face. We've spoken so many times on Skype and over on Facebook and everything. It's the first time we've kind of got together face-to-face. But this gentleman is a bit of a webinar guru, and we're going to be talking about webinars this morning. And he, not only that, though, he has this uncanny ability to make connections with everybody and anybody that matters. I've never known anybody who knows so many people, and the stories behind how he makes those connections are just fantastic. He just goes and takes the bull by the horns and just starts mastermind meetings and all sorts of stuff. I mean, you know, no fear is involved here. So I'm going to delve into the mindset of somebody who doesn't seem to let anything hold him back from what he wants to do. But if you want to know about how to run and host really, really effective webinars and hangouts, in fact, then you are on the right call today, because I am speaking to the very lovely Stephen Renton. Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
Hi, Joe. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I want to meet me after hearing that.
Look at that wonderful background as well, all those palm trees and everything going on behind you. So, what's the temperature where you are? Is it nice and warm?
I'd say today's probably just about under 80 degrees right now. We're in San Diego. One of the benefits of living the internet marketing lifestyle, you can be where you want. And I thought rather than do the hangout from the office with the boring wall, a set of curtains behind me, I'd try it out here with the Wi-Fi, and so far it seems to be working great. So yeah, welcome to California, guys.
So you'd rather be in San Diego than Scotland right now, would you?
Ooh, just a tad. Just a tad. I'm going back for Christmas, but I'm getting the most out of it here. I went surfing yesterday, and I'm going to yoga class today, so I'm doing the whole California thing right now before I go back for winter in Scotland.
Do you wear leotard when you do yoga?
Most definitely not, Joe. I got my spandex purple bagel shorts. No, I haven't gone quite that Californian.
Anyway, Stephen, before we kind of get into some of the key stuff, I know you've got some really, really good stuff to share with us about webinars and hangouts. But before we go into that, let's talk about you and why are you in San Diego? I mean, tell us the last few years of your life in 10 seconds flat that's brought you to where you are today.
Okay, sure. Well, I did corporate IT work for many, many years, a couple of decades probably. And it was great. I could work all over the world, but at the end of the day, I'd like to go traveling, have adventures. I'd always have to go back to a big city like London to work, and it was getting more and more difficult to leave the fun places and go back to somewhere like London and put a suit and a tie on and go and work in the corporate world. So a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to look at internet marketing. That's when I first started looking at webinars. The guy that I was working with and was being my mentor at the time was one of the first guys ever to start doing auto webinars before they even existed. It was custom coded scripts and all kinds of weird and funky stuff years and years ago before any of these other tools came out. And I'd started learning about that. I spent some time over in Florida, which was interesting, a little bit too hot for me, and they have no sense of humor there. I was at the point I'd stopped telling jokes because I thought I was going to get shot. And just one day, there was a marketing event on in San Diego. Frank Kern was there, and I flew over. I want to meet Frank Kern. Like every newbie, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Flew over. The event was fantastic. I fell in love with San Diego. As soon as I stepped off the plane, there's no air conditioning, unlike Florida, which is like a swamp. So I loved it immediately. And after this marketing party, which was amazing, 4 in the morning, after a couple of drinks, I actually posted on Facebook, "Hey, this is amazing, we're moving to San Diego." And then about 15 seconds later, I got a reply back on Facebook from my wife going, "Oh, are we?" And it was like, time to go shopping. And that was how I ended up in San Diego. Fell in love with the place. Great marketers, great lifestyle. Everybody's really friendly and helpful over here. There's no dog-eat-dog stuff. Everyone's into the abundance mindset, and I love it. It's great.
Wow. And so you just what? You just packed in your job? You just said, right, that's it. I'm packing in my job and I'm just going to go on this new adventure.
Pretty much. I mean, the jobs I was doing was always contract work and consultancy work, so I could come and go. But every single time I left, after 3 months or 6 months, I said, okay, I'm never going back again. And I think the last time I left, I deliberately burned some bridges, cut my ties, figuratively, and I just said, look, I'm going to go make a go of this. And that's really when you start to succeed at stuff like marketing, because if you do it half-assed and you think, I'll try this and I'll try that, and you get distracted and you don't really jump in with both feet, you're never going to make it. If you make the decision, and I wouldn't recommend anybody quits a job like I did, but just go balls to the wall, full out with one thing, learn it, stick with it until you make it work. That's how you can become a success. And that was the kind of mindset that I went into with this. And it's worked. It's been, as you mentioned before, I seem to be very well connected. I have this insane ability that I didn't know about before to connect with people and make a lot of partnerships. I think the funny accent over here probably helps. But yeah, it's been great.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love the way you say you had an ability that you didn't realise you had. I've just been reading a book called Unique Ability, and it asks you to, start looking at what you think your unique abilities are. And I must say, one of yours, without a doubt, you are an amazing connector. But the great thing, I think one of the things that makes you such an amazing connector is that you're generous. You know, you're very generous with your connections. If somebody needs something, you tend to know the person for them to go to, and you're just instantly, oh, go and talk to this person. You don't hold anything back. So I think that kind of, generosity is what then, brings people back to you. So that's fantastic. So the last couple of years, you've really stuck with webinars, haven't you? I mean, that's been, when you say keep your mind on one thing, go for it, and then keep your mind on one thing, you really have done webinars for the whole time you've been in this game, haven't you?
Pretty much. I mean, as I said, I came from a corporate IT background, and I've been a computer geek all my life. And that's what I was very surprised to find out I was good at networking, because I'm traditionally at the back of the room or working on code and maybe talking to a couple of people, but not networking all over the place. So I was at the stage where I didn't really want to learn 57 new things every couple of months. My head's getting full enough, and for something to go in, something else I think has to drop out at this stage. So I kind of decided I wanted to learn one thing, learn it well, and I just looked at what was going to be the most productive thing, what gives you the best results, the most profits, and just concentrate on that rather than going in baby steps and learning system A, system B, system C, and working my way up. So that's what I did. I'm concentrating on that for a couple of years now. I've got a closed door JV group, and I've been helping a lot of those guys with the webinars. Probably a lot of marketers, people listening to this would actually know. I've been helping them with their webinars and their conversions, figuring out how to tweak things and make them better. And I've worked with a few private clients now, and of course at the moment my whole launch with Webinar Alchemy is ongoing, and I'm bringing all this out to everybody else now.
So tell me, what is it about webinars? Why are webinars so powerful?
Well, I think basically it's the trust that you bond with your audience and you build a trust with them. These days, a lot of people are finding out for online marketing that when it first kind of started out, it was very easy to throw up a sales page and any kind of testimonials, and people would just buy. But nowadays, people are becoming a little bit more wise to the fact that maybe some sales pages aren't quite as authentic as should be, and some of the testimonials might be fake. And it's a lot more difficult for somebody to get on a webinar and talk for an hour and be fake, because people can, a lot of communication is is through how people move, how they speak. If you can see somebody, you can read the expressions in their face. So there's a couple of great things about that, and it allows you to build this trust with your audience, because they can tell that you know your subject matter. They can tell you're an expert. You're not just bullshitting. Can I say that? Yes, I can.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah,
fine. Good. And then the other thing is, well, on a sales page, you've got to work really hard to get it to convert. You've got to have all the psychological triggers, say the right things, pay expensive copywriters, have a designer make the page, blah, blah, blah. And if you get it wrong, you've got to do it all over again. It can take a lot of money and a lot of time to redo that, have somebody else rewrite it, tweak it, have the designer change a page, run some test traffic, see if it works, see if it converts, and it just goes on and on. Whereas if you're doing a webinar, you just jump on. Nobody's really expecting the slides to be Hollywood quality. In our marketplace, people expect the slides to be professional, but not like a work of art, like some sales pages have to be. So you can generally do the slides yourself. You run the webinar, talk to people, they can hear who you are, they get a feel for who you are, and if it doesn't pop the first time, it's very easy to edit it for next time. And you change your slides, you just change what you're saying, and there isn't a whole bunch of expense or a whole bunch of time working with third parties to fix it. So that's what I like about them.
And do you think, what about webinar fatigue? I get asked quite a lot by people. Do you think webinars have been done to death now, though, Joe? I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. There's a couple of people right now that are kind of playing that angle, and it's generally followed shortly by my new thing, because this is the next great thing. And it's like, okay, so you're saying this is rubbish, so you can position your thing as what people need to buy. But if you think about it, it's like saying selling in person is rubbish and it's over. It's nonsense. It's how you're using the tool. If you come some sort of, I guess, scammy clickbank, artist, and you're putting out garbage and you're just doing pitch fests and you're not giving any value, of course people are going to get fed up with you and they're like, oh, rubbish. Or if you drone on forever in your life story and build this whole rags to riches thing and don't give people any value, then yeah, of course people get bored and they tend to drop off. But if you're giving genuine value to the people that are attending the call, so you're teaching them stuff, you're actually giving them useful information, and then there's an offer at the end to help augment that or make it go faster for them or easier. I think it's ridiculous to say that webinars are over. A lot of people, especially in our marketplace, don't realize that in IM, yes, you see a lot of webinars right now because they work. That's why everybody's using them, because they work so well. They convert at double what sales letters or video sales letters are converting at. The price points can be 5-10 times higher than normal product from a sales page, and you can still make that sale because you're developing that trust. So it's the tool, and people are using it. When they use it correctly, you can have amazing results. If you abuse it, you know what you're doing, then yeah, you can fall flat in your face. And for example, I've worked with some clients over the last year. We've designed launches, we've designed webinars as part of that process, and we'll pull out six-figure sums on webinars quite easily. It's almost everybody I know that's using them is generating at least decent 5-figure sums on a webinar when they know what they're doing and the marketing is good. Some other people, for example, I was working with John Sugar over the summer, helping him with his millionaire webinar. And this thing was cranking out, and then it got to the point where even from one JV partner, I think it was $227,000 from one JV, from one webinar with replays. And of course, as you know, you can run the webinar 3, 4, 5 times a week, however many times you want to sit down and do the webinar. So you could be running that with as many partners, and you can't do that with any other medium. Regardless of what people say about how many clicks you're going to get for 1 cent on Facebook, you ain't going to pull $227,000 out of it. So
no.
Yes, I see poppycock to that.
Poppycock, good. And also what people need to remember is that the IM market is like a speck, I mean, it's tiny. And webinars, they may be quite popular in our niche, but I would imagine that across the globe, there are hundreds and thousands of businesses that don't even know what webinar means.
Yes, and I think that's what people don't realize. I mean, even in staying on marketing,
that we'll need help and assistance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at dating, at health, at fitness, any other niches, hardly anybody's using them. Some of the guys in California here, I know, I'm helping them out do some webinars. They're going to be in the dating niche, and they're moving into that next because they had a fantastic video sales letter, but other people are starting to copy it. And it's becoming less effective. So now they're going to move on to webinars and start doing webinars in different niches. So it's enormous. It's a blue ocean strategy. And that basically means if you take it outside of where everybody else is using it, you have great results. I was on an interview last week or the week after with Ezra Firestone, who has a lot of e-commerce stores specifically for older generation cosmetics. And he uses webinars in all of his e-commerce stores to great effect, not necessarily just for selling, but for positioning, for branding, for generating trust with the audience, for explaining what the product line is, and the sales just go through the roof. So he's used it that way very successfully. He's also sold immensely expensive parcels of land in Uruguay via webinar. You just get the buyers from the real estate company to come on, you give them a tour and show them the land and the plots and stuff, and he's made a lot of money that way. Another example would be a friend of mine over in Japan, James Brown. And James, I think he was in Tokyo for a while, and a couple of years back he started doing webinars with a water filtration system. There was a very high-end Italian water filtration system for purifying your tap water. I think it was like $3,000. And he came up with the idea that this would be a fantastic product to pitch to new mothers, because obviously they want everything perfect and sanitary for their babies. And he advertised in all the baby magazines, all the online magazines for babies, the Nate people, blah, 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 blah. He generated over $1 million in sales for a $3,000 water filtration physical product using webinars, because he can get on, explain the whole subject to people, garner their trust, and go into great detail of why it's good and how it works. And it's just, the tool is immense. It's fantastic. So yeah, that's why I do them.
Oh, I love that James Brown story. I love that. I tell you why, because I'm always telling my community, when they're going out there and they're selling their products or services, what's so important is to know their market. They really need to know exactly who their market are intimately. And the fact that James Brown went after a very specific target market and said, I'm going to go after new mothers, this is my market, it just proves my point. So that's a brilliant story. That's excellent. I love that. So how do people get started, Stephen? I get a lot of questions from people who are like, Joe, I want to do webinars, but it looks really technical, and I don't know what to talk about, and and there's this really big fear barrier that's stopping them from kind of moving forward and just going and doing it. So what's your advice, and how can people just start and get it off the ground nice and easily and simply?
Sure. Well, the easiest thing for people to do when they're starting with a webinar, obviously, is to go to somebody that knows what they're talking about, pick up a product or a training or a course that's going to show you step by step what you need to do, so you're not trying to reinvent the wheel. Because I know some JV partners or some guys that have tried to do it themselves. It could take them months of trial and error before we get it right. But if you have a blueprint or a proven strategy, that makes it 10 times easier. These days, the technology has gotten so much easier that you can literally set up a webinar in under 5 minutes flat. Once you have the webinar platform, once you've set up your user ID, and I demonstrate this usually when I'm on a webinar now, in under 2 minutes, I'll sign up to a webinar service, I'll schedule the first webinar, and I'll have the links ready to send out to somebody. That's how fast it can be. The other thing people worry about as well is talking. They're very worried about doing a webinar, and the great thing about that is it's not like a hangout. This is taking it to a new level where you're actually in front of a camera and you've got to worry about people looking at you and what you're going to say. If you're doing a webinar, it's a bunch of slides with just you and a microphone, in a bedroom or an office, wherever it may be. So that you don't have to have this huge fear of oh my God, everybody's listening to me, everybody's going to laugh if I fluff up a line. I mean, I believe when you first started out with webinars, you had a few technical snafus along the way, but it didn't hurt you, now did it?
No. No, hurt my pride probably at the time, but that was about it.
Yeah. So I'd say it's a bit like riding a bike. When people haven't done it before, they think, oh, I could never do that. But after you've been on a couple of times, okay, you might fall off and scrape your leg, but big deal. Then you'll get on it, and it's second nature after that. And then the results, as I mentioned, I was talking to you before the call. I did a webinar, a hangout, just a couple of days ago with another marketer. And this was just purely, just like this one we're doing now, where it's conversational, you're talking about stuff, we're not trying to pitch a product or sell people anything, but just by purely putting that content together, putting it out and letting his lists consume it and go, oh, actually this is pretty good, and he knows what he's talking about, and it sounds like a good product. His conversions and his EPCs, his earnings per click, have doubled what any other marketer is doing right now on my launch as of today. So it just shows you how powerful this stuff is. It's doubling it and then doubling it again, just because you're getting to that stage where you have a connection with the audience and they go, okay, he's not a bullshit artist, I can trust him.
Wow, that is incredible, isn't it? So, talking about Hangouts, where do you think Hangouts now kind of fit into that webinar mix?
Sure. Well, again, that's an interesting question that a lot of people say, well, aren't Hangouts the new webinars, and are we just going to forget webinars now and just do Hangouts? And I would say no, not really, because the technology, the platform isn't quite there yet. There are some restrictions with it, things you can do, things you can't do. A webinar for a structured sales presentation where you have a lot of money riding on it that the technology isn't going to fail you is a lot better. One of the big benefits, and this is getting back to what you were talking about earlier when you're talking about knowing and understanding your audience, being able to do a little bit of research, is that on a webinar you have a great amount of flexibility on how you can interact with your audience. When you set it up, you can send them a survey beforehand, there's questions and answers during it, there's polls, people can ask questions by raising their hands. At the end you can have an exit survey as well, and then after you've run the webinar you can run a bunch of reports which will give you statistics on how the webinar went. It will show you the peaks and troughs of interest, where people dropped off, how many people registered, who came, who asked which question. Then you can analyze that and figure out, well, how can I make this better? So if you're doing an hour presentation, excuse me, my earpiece is acting up. If you're doing an hour's presentation, everybody drops after half an hour, you can look at your presentation and go, well, I must have been pretty boring at that point, so I'll swap that out with something else. On a Hangout, you don't have any of those tools. You can't analyze that kind of stuff. And there isn't really a mechanism for having a very easy interaction with your audience. Right now in a Hangout, you've got to go across to YouTube and then try and monitor 2 screens and type things in. And if you're in a sales environment, which this isn't right now, this is just us chatting, but if you're in a sales environment and you're specifically there to demonstrate a product and to sell it, that's all very distracting, and it's not the best way to do things. Also, you can't push out a URL to your buyers on a Hangout. And for a lot of people, they'd much rather just click on a link and be taken to a sales page to buy than having to remember what your URL was and type it in and hope they didn't type a mistake. So right now, Hangouts are being used most effectively as almost a bookending tool, where you would use a Hangout for additional interviews or masterclass or information around a webinar, just to get more interest and more trust involved, so when you funnel people onto the webinar itself, the results are even better. And there's a very good friend of mine, David Sprague, over in Florida, who's been doing this very successfully. And I think over the last year he's run this multiple times on webinars, and he's having 6-figure webinars as an affiliate with other people's products just by using this technique. So it's not his product, he's just sending his list to somebody else's product as a JV partner, as an affiliate, but because he's taken the time to do a little interview, sending them to the webinar, and then doing a masterclass afterwards, this kind of combination of mediums is just sending his results through the roof. So he's getting easily 4, 5, 6, 7 times more than other marketers that are just doing straight webinars by themselves. Powerful stuff.
Wow. So, I mean, that sounds that is very powerful. And just staying with that, can you just explain to the audience that kind of affiliate webinar strategy? A lot of people will be sitting there thinking, I really want to be an affiliate marketer. It's you know, I have a lot of my audience that are really interested in doing that. And just talk us through how they can use, you know, webinars as an affiliate strategy.
Sure. Well, a lot of people use them very effectively in product launches, because if you're, well, let me take a step back first of all. As an affiliate marketer, what you're going to be doing is capitalizing on somebody else's hard work. So you don't have to go out and make your own product and do your own sales page and have your own technical support and your help desk and blah, blah, blah. You're going out and finding a quality product that already converts very well, that somebody else has done all the hard work for. And then when you promote that, you're going to get 50% of the profits. So, you know, it's pretty standard. Same thing when you're doing a webinar. If you've got a list, you can generate a list and send that traffic to somebody else's webinar. You would just be acting the host, like Joe is right now with this. The marketer, if it was me, for example, would come on, do their presentation, show the product, make the pitch, do all the hard work, and then you just split the profits. So for somebody who's just starting out and isn't really sure, oh, do I have to be an expert? Do I need my own product? You don't. I mean, the things that David has been doing, he did one presentation, I think it was a 997 product that he'd never ran to his list before, used this strategy session, sent his list to the webinars and the Hangouts for somebody else, and he made over, well over $200,000 doing that with that one. It wasn't even his product. He didn't have to do the hard work. And then webinars are also great for building a list as well. If you don't have a list, your presentations, you bring people on for free, you build your list that way. They're a great way for getting started with your list. And then once you actually have a sales presentation as well, say for example, you build your first webinar, it's doing pretty well. You get other JV partners to run your webinar, you split the profits, you make money that way, and then you can say to other people, hey, I'm building my list, I'll run your webinar. So it's like a win-win situation for everybody, because you're actually getting more people on your list, which are all the other buyers and the registrants from the other person's list. You're splitting the profits, and then you do the same with their products. And when you get to that stage, it starts taking off exponentially.
So can you do webinars if you have no list?
Yes. Well, I believe your setup would be the fantastic sort of case study for that when you were doing your initial webinars. It was a Facebook app, wasn't it, you were giving away way back in the day?
Way back in the day, yeah, my $100 build a Facebook fan page app, and yeah, my first couple of webinars I had like 20-30 people maximum on the webinars. Yeah, thank goodness though, thank God, because you know the webinars were absolute disasters. So, but yeah, so what you've just described though, Stephen, is awesome, because what you're saying is you can essentially, as an affiliate marketer, you can go out and use webinars to sell other people's products to your list. If you don't have a list, you can use webinars to help you build your list, and then as you grow, if you then decide to create your own products, you can use webinars to sell your own products and use webinars to approach other affiliates and get them to sell your products for you. So it's pretty much win-win-win all round. I mean, webinars are incredibly versatile and can be used in all areas of your marketing strategy.
Yes, and even the guys you'll see on the forum spaces or with lower ticket front-end products, unless you buy it, you won't see the actual funnel itself. But I've been helping a lot of guys out with launches in that space over the last year. So if they're launching anything up to $27, $47, even up to a $97 product on the front end, once you get into that funnel, which is basically the products that they're going to sell on the back end, they may go up to $100 or $200 via a sales page, but at the end of that funnel there will always be a webinar as well, and that's where they'll go for the high ticket price sales, which will generally double the revenue on any kind of a launch. So even though you might not see them, there's a webinar in there all the time.
Now, I want to talk to you about a really specific webinar strategy. I was in your webinar Alchemy product the other day, which I have to say is absolutely chock-a-block full of information. I mean, I went in there and thought, wow, there's just so much stuff in there. It looks brilliant. I know that you have been working on it for a really, really long time. So yeah, there's loads of information. So I'm going to talk to you about that in a sec, and I want to ask you about a very specific strategy you talked about in there, which really piqued my interest. I thought, oh, that's good. You know, I thought that's really good. I've never done that. I've never used a webinar in that way. But before I get to that little point, I do just want to ask you quickly about sales pitches, because I know lots of people really struggle with sales pitches on webinars. Even I, after all this time of doing them, 3 years, even after some serious successes with sales pitches. I mean, I've done 6 figures now on a few webinars now with you know, sales pitches that I feel uncomfortable. I just don't find that they flow really easily for me. And one of the things that I've always kind of disliked on sales pitches on webinars is the whole kind of, you know, it's worth $85,000, but today for you can have it for $97. And yes. When you talk to people about putting webinars together, what's some of the sort of great pieces of advice you give them when coming to the sales pitch section?
Sure. Well, again, it depends where they're at in their webinar career. I mean, what I would tell a lot of beginners is really exactly what you were doing. Because when you're starting out, if you're a bit nervous about doing a webinar, then you got the extra, the pressure about, oh, I've got to do a presentation, a pitch at the end, I've got to try and sell stuff. You're giving yourself too much of a hard job to begin with. So for beginners, I would suggest that they just really don't do a pitch at the end. Do some content-only webinars, get familiar with presenting, get familiar with the setup, the technology, get into your flow. And then once you've done that a few times, you're building up the audience, they're trusting you, they're liking you, they're getting value. So when you do get around to pitching something or trying to sell them something on another webinar, they'll be much more receptive to it and you're much more calm. What I try and tell a lot of my students and clients when they're doing the actual selling on a webinar itself, just make sure you're doing it ethically. There's a lot of people that will make up all kinds of nonsense about, oh, there's only 5 copies available, buy now. And it's like, well, it's an electronic product, you silly person. So, you know, trying to just tell people there's 5 copies and, you know, we can't sell any more than that is just like BS. And I've seen some guys, and I'm not going to mention their names because I get into enough trouble for that already, that will do this kind of stuff, and they'll go, oh, all 20 are all sold out, and then, of course, all they're doing is building the scarcity. So people are like, oh, damn, I can't get it, I'm not in. And then they'll have one mysterious refund, or somebody's transaction didn't go through, so there's one copy left, buy now. And you're just watching that going, oh, just get me into the shower now. Oh, it's just nasty. You know, it's just, there's some unethical guys that will pull all that kind of nonsense. You definitely have to use it as an event. You have to give people a reason to buy now, but you can do it very ethically. The whole reason that webinars are successful is it's a marketing event. You're getting a special deal, you're getting a special offer or price or some kind of special bonus that you don't get on a normal day-to-day basis. And if you go to the website, you can't find it, or it's a higher price. So you do have to have some element of buy now for this reason in there. And like I say, that could be, say for example, a discount for the first 10 buyers. You could be giving a masterclass training to the people in the webinar itself. If you have got any kind of one-on-one or time-intensive bonus or component to your offer, then you can say ethically, that yes, this is limited to the first 20 people because I'm spending an hour with each of you to help you set things up, and then obviously there's only so many hours a week and I can only do it so many times. In that situation, yes, you can okay, 10 copies or 20 copies available, and you can ramp up the pressure for buying. Just, yeah, don't make stuff up. There's enough of those kind of nasty marketers that hopefully we're getting rid of these days out there. So just do it ethically. There's lots of ways to do it, and we cover a lot of that stuff in the training that I do, and yeah, it can be done the proper way. And I'm going to buy a new headset.
Sorry. That's okay. I was
just saying on the other call.
I was talking to a very experienced young man the other day, or very intelligent and clever young man the other day, recommended to me by none other than Stephen Renton, who told me, go and chat to this guy, Joe, regards copywriting. So anyway, so I'm talking to this chap the other day, fantastic guy, and we were talking about video, and I was saying to him, you know, could you write me some scripts for some videos to go on a couple of sales pages that I've got? And he said, no, I don't need to write you scripts for your videos. You record your videos. You know, you're great on your videos. No, I said, I don't want me on my videos. I want, you know, proper professional made videos. And anyway, he came back to me with this whole message all about that I must read Robert Cialdini's Power of Influence, and that he mentioned another copywriter who I can't remember his name now, Gary Benvicini or something, and he mentioned John Colton, and he said all of these guys talk about the power, one of the biggest sales conversion powers out there is the power of authenticity, is the power of openness and honesty and frankness. And apparently these guys say, you know, it's one of the strongest conversion methods out there for any copy is that power of openness, honesty, and frankness. And so what Stephen's just talking about with if you are going to go and do some sales pitches on your webinars, is don't do stuff that you don't feel comfortable with, and don't come out with sayings or quotes or something because you've heard somebody else do it and you think you should, because the highest converting webinars I've ever done are ones where I've dropped all of the rules of what a sales pitch should be, and I've just gone out there and been me and said, look, I've got this product, this is what it is, you know, and I'd really like you guys to come on board. And that power of authenticity and just being open and honest goes beyond anything else.
Yeah, definitely. You don't want to be another Me Too. People have seen enough of that, and that's when things really work well in marketing, when it's something fresh, something original, it's not stale or regurgitated. So you know, that's what people appreciate. And again, that's why at the moment Hangouts are starting to become so popular, because they do have that novel new freshness. For the guys that were talking about, webinars are dead and over, forget that. But Hangouts are a new kind of version of that. So when you're combining them with your webinars and you're doing your sales presentation with your Hangouts as well, it's bringing that whole new element. I mean, you can see what Joe's doing, you can see what I'm doing, you can see the backgrounds. You see me desperately need to find the guy that designed these earpieces and go and smack him across. And you don't get that.
You need a pair of Logitechs. You need a pair of Logitechs.
I'm trying to be professional. A friend of mine told me to go and get this in-ear thing, and he goes, he didn't mention it. It drops out every 35 seconds. I'll be scratching my ear like I've got something in it all through the call.
One of these days, I am actually going to get a mic and not have headphones on my head. I'm sure people think I was born with these headphones implanted on my head. But anyway, Stephen, I just want you to talk to us. As I said, I was in your webinar, Alchemy, and I was watching one of your videos, and you described a method. You had a video all about the different methods of webinars, and you described a method which you called your psychic product creation method. And I just thought, God, that's awesome. And I wonder if I know we're kind of plucking a bit out of your course here, but I wonder if you could just spend a couple of minutes just telling us what that is, because I thought it was a great strategy, really good, and I'm going to start using it myself.
Yeah, that is a good one. Basically, when people are starting to figure out what they're going to create a product on, especially when they're starting out, it's very easy to get wrapped up in the idea that your product is going to be the bee's knees and everybody's going to love it and everybody's going to want it. But unfortunately, you can spend quite a lot of time under that presumption building this all singing, all dancing product and spending a long time just to find out that actually nobody is really interested in that. There wasn't really hitting the mark, and the desire or the marketplace or the demand isn't there for it. So the psychic model creation method was basically a way to get around that and be able to do some intel with your audience first and see if they are interested in it. And this is something that Robert Stooks, who's one of the guys that came to me last year. Robert works in Daredevil Marketing, and he's doing very well with that with Ryan McKinney now. But when he came to see me last year, Robert was, he's doing a few things with these webinars. Some of them weren't popping quite as well. And I worked with him, and we were looking at this particular method where rather than create the whole product first, you will put out a webinar on the subject to your list or to your audience and say, hey, listen, I'm giving this presentation on, say, for example, ways to SEO your website with a new Twitter method. Obviously, making it up off the top of my head here. And you can put that out to your list and then say, listen, we're going to give this presentation, we're going to give great content, blah, blah, blah. Get everybody on the webinar, see what the content is like, do all the interaction, get the questions and answers, get the surveys happening, see what people think about it, what the biggest questions are, do they like it, do they not like it, would they want to do further training, and then you can do them an offer at the end of the presentation. There's different ways of doing it, but the way that Robert did it last year was very successful, was that he would pitch them on, I think it was a 5 or 6 week course on that subject matter. He'd give the free presentation, teach them a bunch of stuff, and say, hey, listen, I'm going to actually do a product now with a 6-7 week course delivered via webinar on this. So if you guys want to learn how to do this, and I think his particular one was on product creation, funnily enough, then sign up now, and I think the price point was $497, and then you go ahead over the following number of weeks doing a webinar every week with your list, and then you deliver the product. So you haven't actually made it beforehand. You maybe got well, obviously you have to have an outline of what it's going to be so you can talk about it intelligently on the webinar, but all you're doing is planning out what the product would entail, not actually doing the work. Then you pitch it to your audience, you get to see if they're interested enough to buy it, and if they are, then you go ahead and you make it and you deliver it, instead of doing it the other way where you could be spending months and months and months to develop something, pouring your heart and all your expenses and your money and your time into it, and then find out that that wasn't the wrong one, wasn't the right one to be doing. So Robert did that last year very successfully, pulled in about $40,000 in his first 3 webinars, delivered the course via webinar, recorded the webinar sessions, and packaged that up into a course that's now finished that he can sell without actually being on webinars. So it's pretty much a genius model, I think.
Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I just thought, gosh, that is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, I'm looking forward to implementing that into my strategy. Because yeah. Anyway, what I want to do now is talk about Webinar Alchemy before we go, Stephen. Because I have been in there the last couple of days, and there's a lot of great information in there and some great software as well. I couldn't believe the different apps and things you've got in there, and all the interviews you've got with people, and I'm in there, a little interview with me in there.
Of course.
And yeah, there's just loads of stuff in there. So can you just talk to us a little bit about Webinar Alchemy? Because you have spent a long time putting that together, haven't you? It's been a bit of a passion.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting. This goes back to when I actually started in IM, and it's one of the reasons that I do share all my contacts, as you mentioned, and connect people, because when I first started off, I worked with this mentor guy. moved on because that wasn't working so well. And then I was going to a lot of mainstream IM guys, you know, the big guys, the trustworthy guys. And you would be asking for referrals, and half the time people wouldn't want to tell you, you know, who their designer was or who their copywriter was. It's like, oh, that's my secret. If I give it away, you know, everybody can go and do what I'm doing. It's like, really? So I got some recommendations from copywriters and some video guys and page designers, and a lot of them didn't work out. I spent a lot of money. I wasted a lot of money, and I got shafted for a lot of money from that. And that's when I kind of found my way into the forum space. And I know the big name guys in IM will knock the forum space badly and say, oh, it's all junk, it's garbage or whatever. But the people in there have some real integrity. I think because it is very much more an open-minded environment, it's an open environment where people will talk freely. If somebody is doing unethical things or ripping somebody off or scamming, they'll talk openly. They'll share exactly who they're working with, who the guys were that did the sales copy and the letters and stuff, and that's really well. So over the years, I started with Webinar Alchemy. It's taken me more than a year to put this thing together because of some of the technical setbacks and the problems with some of these people I was working with. It took a lot longer than it should have done, but it's been my driving passion to put this together to be the best thing possible. And I've been working, as I mentioned earlier, with a lot of the guys in my JV group, teaching them how to do webinars that have been having incredible success, and just helping them fine-tune and tweak their presentations, their replay sequences as well, which is where you will send out replays of your webinar to your list. There's certain ways of doing that where you can almost double your income when it's done properly. So there's lots of little tweaks and techniques. Over the last year or so, I've worked with probably most of the biggest webinar guys in the industry, helping them with the webinars, brokering the webinars, being involved in all different kind of JV aspects. So I'd say I'm pretty well connected on the webinar scene. And I just wanted to put this product together, make sure that it's a one-stop shop for everything that you need to know about doing online events. There's nothing worse than having to go and buy one product and then finding out there's only part of the puzzle and you've got to get something else and something else. So as you mentioned, there's a lot of stuff in there, and that shouldn't be daunting to people because you don't need to learn it all or use it all at once. But when you do get in there, it's going to have everything you need. There's guys that I know that have generated 5- and 6-figure webinars from that information. I mean, Robert, who I mentioned earlier, he teamed up with Ryan McKinney, went on to do a lot of webinars with Daredevil Marketing last year. From that initial $40,000 he made, they did $240,000 using webinars alone in their business last year. And again, that's just using the strategies and techniques I was talking about, where once you get rolling with your first webinar that works, you're building your list, other people will do the webinar for you because it converts, you split the money, then you'll run their webinars, you'll split the money, and your list grows and grows and grows. So that's, you know, from $0 to $240,000 in a year. You can't really tell me there's too many other techniques you're going to do that kind of money with. So yeah,
no, there may be a lot in there, but it's all really well organized. So you're able to, when I went in there, you can go in and there's the first section, which is the basics. You know, it's Webinars 101, and it takes you through exactly how to, you know, your first steps. That's what I really like. You take people through the first steps. This is exactly how you go, and you set up a webinar, and you take people through their first webinar, and you show them some different webinar methods that they can put into practice, and all the rest of it, you know. And then you take them through to the next stage. Okay, now let's get into a little bit more advanced stuff. Let's talk a bit more about the content and a bit more about how you're going to present the webinars and all this kind of stuff. And then you take them into even more advanced stuff, you know, and now let's get, and you don't need, you know, you only need kind of the first couple of bits to get off the ground, and then as you're practicing, you get into the more advanced stuff. But then you've got the big section with software, so you've got apps and things that people can use to help them with their webinars, and then you've also got the experts and all of that kind of stuff so that people can listen to different interviews with experts and get inspiration of how to do things. And then you've got, you know, obviously I mean, there's loads of bonuses in there as well. I mean, I was blown. You can tell I was really impressed. I was blown away when I went in there. I thought, wow.
Thank you, Jill. Yeah, we've got a lot of nice feedback from people that have been buying into that. So after all this time, it's funny because as a launch manager, I've launched so many products for other people over the last year. And when it was coming to my own launch, of course, I'm like, oh, what happens if it doesn't work? And if people don't like it, it's going to look like a real idiot. But of course, that's just your own mind.
Yeah,
circles.
Fear. You had some fear. Yay.
Yes, I did. All my big JV partners are going, Stephen, get your product out. I'm like, no, I'll just launch this for somebody else. Like, Stephen, get your product out. So eventually, I'm like, okay, I'll get my product out. And yeah, like everybody else, I'll stay on the camera here going, don't be scared, go and do it. I was, but it's working great. It's going great. The business is going to just go to a next level now, and I will not be launching for anybody else. I'm just realizing now the amount of work and effort that goes into a launch and the long-term revenue and the long-term benefits of doing your own stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not always a genius. I was dumb enough to do it for everybody else for a year, but at least I got the great experience and know exactly how things work during that process. But yeah, you're going to be seeing products from Stephen Renton from now on, not from anybody else.
Good for you. Good for you. Well, I mean, it is a great product, and if you want to have a look at Webinar Alchemy, then all the details are below this video. All right, so you'll be able to go down below and get further details about it and see what it's all about and all of that kind of stuff. So good stuff. All right. Well, just before we go, Stephen, I do always like to end the session by asking my guests. You know, I always forget to warn my guests I'm going to ask this question, and every time I put them on the spot, and they go, "Oh, okay." I
can always pretend there's a bad. Sorry, I can't hear you, Joe. It's breaking up. I can't hear you. No, she's gone. What can I do?
So I'm gonna put you on the spot slightly and just ask you. I like to end these sessions with something inspirational, and so what I ask you is, through your career, has there been a book that you have read, a film that you have watched, a person that you have followed, a quote that you perhaps once heard, anything kind of that's really inspired you along the way that you can recommend to our audience?
Yes. That's actually quite an easy question because I was talking about this the other day. Phew, I was getting quite worried there. Yeah, it's not really related to marketing. You did mention Robert Cialdini or Cialdini's book.
Cialdini, yeah.
Yes, that's a fantastic one that people should always read on influence. But the book that's probably had the most influence on me was actually a really old hippies book from the 70s, I believe. It was called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And I actually talk about this during my webinar. So it's not a book about motorbikes at all. It's basically trying to define what the concept of quality is. And this guy goes in this big, long, rambling story through a trip across America and into all the history of the Greek philosophers, trying to define what is quality. And basically that's what I've kind of determined as I've gone through my business and my life. And if you try and do things with quality, as in you will bring, you deliver quality to people in your marketing, the people that are around you, if you give them value, if you give them quality, it all comes back to you 10 times. And I think that's probably one of the most influential books. It was a fantastic read. I loved it. The story is great. I've read it about 10 times. All of my close friends have been given the book for Christmas or birthdays or whatever. So yeah, Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, defining what quality is, and if you go out to create products of quality, you deliver value and quality to your audience, you treat them well, your business is just going to grow exponentially. So that would be my tip.
Fantastic, thank you. That's awesome. Okay, well guys, underneath this video will be a link where you can go and connect with Stephen on Facebook. There will also be a link so that you can find out more details about his amazing product, Webinar Alchemy. I'll also put the links for the Power of Influence and Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, so that you can just go straight through and have a look at some of these things that we've talked about today. But from me, that's it, Stephen. It's been awesome to talk to you. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and great to use this technology to actually see you for the first time.
I know. This is what I look like.
It's great as well that I get to be in the middle of the day and it's all sunny and I'm rested, and you're up in the middle of the night. So.
I know. That's the joy of that's. I don't know why I picked Thailand. You know, and 90% of all activity I do is in the US, and I have to get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning to be able to speak to anybody.
Slight flaw there.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, not to worry, I'll be in the US soon. Soon.
Good.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I do hope that you have enjoyed this fantastic episode of Mind, Money and Marketing. Stephen, you are amazing and you've been a fantastic guest, and thank you for all of the knowledge and the advice that you have given everybody today. From me, I will see you, everybody, next week. Bye-bye. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.